Hello and welcome again. In this video we will start looking at theories of international relations. We will see how these theories interpret how international relations change, what the role of states is in the international system, whether international institutions matter, and whether international cooperation between states is possible and can be sustainable. In this video we start with realism and, as a later extension of this theory, neo-realism. Realism is one of the oldest and most well-known theories in international relations. In realism, in essence, individuals are rational actors and are assumed to aim to maximize their own power. If another individual becomes stronger than they are themselves, this poses a security challenge. It is a world of all against all, without a central authority that regulates their interactions. In classical realism, in which Hans Morgenthau is one of the famous authors, it is this human nature that is seen as driving conflict, also in terms of international politics. Generally, in realism, groups can be the focus or unit of analysis, but in classical realism, it is states. They are the unit of analysis and with this, the main actors in world politics. These states calculate their interests in terms of power, or, as Hans Morgenthau has stated, political leaders think and act in terms of interest defined as power. This is a quote from his book, Politics Among Nations, published in 1948. So, realism in international relations theory is based on three core assumptions. 1. States are the unit of analysis, that is, the main actors in world politics. 2. States aim to increase their power. 3. States behave in rational ways. In the international system, states aim to increase or even maximize their own power, notably in military terms. If another state becomes more powerful than they are themselves, this can pose a security threat in the future. Therefore, states tend to be concerned about what is called relative gains, not what they obtain in absolute terms, but in relative ones. If another state is more powerful or has more arms than your own state does, you fear that you could be defeated in the future. In modern versions of realism, also called neo-realism, human nature is not necessarily the driving force for conflict. In this modern perspective, the structure of the international system and the units, so the states, are seen as interacting with each other. It is the structure that encourages certain actions and discourages others by states. Neo-realism is based on some core assumptions. 1. The international system is anarchical, meaning that there is no central authority. 2. The international system is characterized by interaction between these units, the states. 3. Within the structure of the international system, the distribution of capabilities, that is power, can vary over time and can vary between states. In contrast to realism, neo-realism sees the structure of the international system as largely determining state behavior. Rational calculations about their own position in the system determine states' interests and their strategies. States define their interest in terms of power and position. Political leaders respond to the incentives and the constraints that the system provides and to the distribution of capabilities within it. So variations in state behavior are due to variation in the characteristics of the international system. According to neo-realism, cooperation between states is unlikely to happen, but states may aim to form coalitions or alliances in an attempt to balance the power of other entities in the system. The formation of an alliance may cause the formation of a counter-alliance. In the global system, on a regular basis, such balances of power will form. States or coalitions of states may also face a security dilemma. For example, they might prefer to disarm, but the fear that the other side gets stronger than they are themselves, and the fact that there is no higher level authority controlling the system, forces them to continue the armaments process. When do you think we saw such balances of power or security dilemmas happen in world politics? A prominent example could be the situation of the Cold War, where the United States and the Soviet Union formed the two poles of a bipolar international system. They balanced each other's power and were caught in a kind of security dilemma. In neo-realist thinking, changes in the distribution of capabilities will also cause changes in the relations between states. The world system may at times be dominated by what is called a hegemonic power. That is a power that has geopolitical and maybe also cultural dominance. But states may also fear the rise of a hegemon and may try to form coalitions or balance against such a potential hegemon. States may also lose power in the global system, allowing for challenging powers to rise. In neo-realist thinking, regional integration can also be seen as an attempt to balance the power of a major state or coalitions of states within the international system. For example, cooperation among the states of the European Union would be seen as unlikely to happen. But European integration, from this theoretical perspective, makes more sense if it is seen as an attempt to increase Europe's power and standing in the global system. The formation of regional integration schemes around the world, including those focused predominantly on economic integration, could then be seen as deliberate attempts of its member states to increase their collective power and influence on the global level. Of course, organizations such as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, an organization that we will deal with later in this course, are other examples of alliance formation in the global system. Currently, the rise of major powers, such as China, challenges the existing global power balance and may also lead to the rise of new powers and new regional integration schemes. According to realist thinking in international relations theory, cooperation between states is not likely to happen, and neither is the establishment of international institutions, because they could constrain their own actions. States will be willing to create international rules and institutions if they are consistent with their interests. International institutions, if they are created, are then likely to largely reflect the preferences and power of the most influential states in the system. They are unlikely to be able to act independently of the interests of these powers. This is an argument that has been presented, for example, by John Mersheimer in a 1994 article called "The False Promise of International Institutions." The article actually was a reaction to literature that assumes that international institutions can be quite influential. Since the global political system is assumed to be anarchical, meaning there is no formal central authority, it largely constitutes what is called a self-help system. According to some neo-realist thinkers, including Kenneth Waltz, states mainly act to ensure their survival. This approach is also called defensive realism. Other neo-realist thinkers, including John Mersheimer, have argued that states, mainly great powers, aim to maximize their power in an attempt to dominate the international system. This approach is called offensive realism. Sometimes neo-realists are seen as pessimists who see the world as very conflictual. However, we may need to remember that neo-realists were often concerned with the maintenance of global peace and stability. They did not describe the world as conflictual because they felt that was how it should be, but they aimed to describe and understand state behavior exactly in an attempt to prevent violence and war. An example of this is Kenneth Waltz, who made very important contributions to neo-realist thinking. Waltz aimed to understand what drives state behavior, why states may feel insecure in the system, and with this, how situations can be prevented where states go to war with each other. Do you think it is indeed true that cooperation between states is difficult to achieve because states are mainly concerned about relative gains? Do states indeed seek to increase their power? I think that while neorealism has many worthwhile elements, states are not likely to be the main and almost only actor, and that other factors may co-determine their actions, apart from the aim to increase power, such as the existence of institutions, of norms, and identities. So, what have we learned? Realism is one of the oldest theories of international relations. It has been extended to account for the dynamics of the international system in what is called neo-realism. Neo-realists assume that the world is anarchical and conflictual in nature. States aim to continuously increase their power due to fears that others might become more powerful than they are themselves, and with this, their security could be threatened. But we have to keep in mind that realism and neorealism are not prescriptions as to how individuals or states should behave. They simply aim to understand what drives behavior, and with this, on the international level, how patterns could be established that prevent states from going to war with each other. In the next video, we will look at another approach to international relations that is very different from realism. It is liberalism and later neoliberalism. In these approaches, while some assumptions are shared with realism, the perspective on world politics is quite a different one.